For couples that met during the pandemic.
If you met your significant other during the pandemic, how'd you two meet? Any hope for someone recently single? Thanks. Online. But we had known each other 4 years prior. It never went anywhere then, but happened to stumble across each other again on Bumble this year. Our first date was a fun hike and lunch at his place. It wasn't what I typically go for. I'm much more of a meet in public type of person, but due to the pandemic, it was the better option. In person. I'm a bud tender and he was a regular at my dispensary, luckily deemed essential in my state. We ID people when they come in, so I could tell he was cute from his license pic. I followed his stop-motion page on YouTube, he added me on Facebook, we found out we lived 1 block from one another, and the rest has kinda been a movie since then. I met my SO through Tinder back in October. I was recently single for a month and a half from a 2.5-year relationship. I started talking to my current SO for a week, we went on a date, and it went really well. We started to have this weird, what are we, type of relationship, and at first it felt like we were just hooking up, then it led to more spending time with each other outside of the bedroom, getting to know each other and eventually admitting our feelings. Yesterday he officially asked me to be his girlfriend. I've dated 2 people during COVID. I met both on Hinge. We did a month of online dates, coffee, cooking together, Netflix, movies. Before we meet in person, we have the bubble talk to make sure we could meet those expectations. I'm loving not spending money at bars or expensive restaurants. Buying someone a drink. This is one positive during COVID. The first relationship ended because she didn't want to commit. I didn't want to be quarantine buddy. It was hard. She would hop in and out of quarantine with me to spend time with her immune-compromised mom, which was fine and the right thing to do. She was a year out from a divorce. The second relationship is 3 months in. We are an hour apart. We do a virtual date night in the week and see each other on the weekends. We do takeout and hang out in. I haven't met someone I have so much in common with. Not sure what's to come. I'm anxious as hell about it. We met in college, it started during COVID, and it was pretty cute cause we just started talking normally and then it started to be pretty obvious that we liked each other and just confessed. We've been dating for a month now, it's our first time of having a relationship so we're a bit awkward with things, sometimes we haven't even kissed yet. IDK if that's normal, but because of COVID we're being careful. He's the best guy the first could ever ask for, he's really caring and respectful, we share a bunch of things in common and I'm just so in love with him. I can't believe I feel like this. At the start of the pandemic, I left my flat super quickly, with just a couple of bags, and caught a train across the border to go stay with my parents. At the time I thought it would be a couple weeks, but hey ho. 3 months in, my lease was up and legally I wasn't allowed to go clear out my flat. So I asked a friend from church, and he and a couple guys sorted everything for me, boxed it up and left it in the church attic so I could come get it when I moved into my new flat. Honestly, they were lifesavers. The important point is, though, that they also packed up all my non-perishable food from the kitchen and brought that to the church. I watched them do it over video call. And on that call, I distinctly remember my friend boxing up 3 bottles of barbecue sauce. I remember, because I had gone 3 months at that point without this particular specific brand, and I was gagging for my barbecue hit. Fast forward 2 months, the lockdown has eased and my new lease has started. I'm back at the church collecting all my things. Now, obviously there was a lot to do, but somehow I couldn't help noticing that my food box in the kitchen was distinctly sans barbecue. And when I unpacked, I still couldn't find it. At the same time, my church began live streaming services with a small team controlling all the cameras, cues, etc., and I got involved on the crew. This other guy, Rick, was basically the church go-to tech guy, but because I hadn't been on the team before the lockdown, I'd never met him. Anyway, we got on really well. He started giving me lifts to and from church where we'd have the deepest, loveliest conversations. Very quickly we were messaging constantly and he invited me round for dinner, was within the safe guidelines at the time, he lives alone. That night, we basically just ate and talked for 6 hours. When Rick noticed how much barbecue sauce I was adding to my food, he told me he was impressed and relieved. He was also a bit of a barbecue freak, and was glad I wouldn't be able to judge him for the habit. This, of course, was the perfect segue into my new go-to anecdote. I told him the story, rounding up by saying, "So I guess there's at least one other sauce addict in the church." But Rick wasn't laughing. He looked me dead in the eye and told me he had a confession to make. Thing is, it was almost 1 a.m. by the time, but Rick was adamant that he would get me more of that barbecue sauce to replace the old bottles. And he knew where to find it. So there we were, in this random empty supermarket in the middle of the night, collecting up copious amounts of barbecue sauce to replace the 3 bottles he'd nicked. So yeah, the guy literally bought his way into my heart with barbecue sauce. I met my partner on Tinder and we've been together since March. However, I wouldn't take that a sign of hope for others because finding a good partner on Tinder is like winning the lottery. Using Tinder plus the pandemic wasn't a good combo for my self-esteem at all, and I almost gave up on it before I met someone. If I hadn't found a unicorn on a dating app this year, I would have been Saul. My girlfriend and I met on Bumble in March. March 13th actually, the day quarantine went out. We talked for about 6 weeks before I asked her to be my girlfriend, but we didn't actually meet in person until our 4 months after meeting. We would call on Discord and use jigsawpuzzles.io to do puzzles together. I bought a Switch and Animal Crossing so we could go on virtual museum dates. We just passed 8 months together. We only live a mile apart, but I'm immune suppressed, 3 types of chemo for a progressive spine issue, Crohn's, and a nerve disorder, so we only see each other after she gets negative test results, but she gets tested a lot for us to be together, 3 times the week of Christmas since she was seeing family. The quarantine has made things a little more difficult, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. She is the love of my life and I feel so blessed to have her in my life. Believe it or not, Reddit. I went through tall meets tall just looking for a good time. Most of them were your casual f***ckboi, but one caught my eye in the DMs. We hit it off immediately, but we didn't want anything serious considering I was recently divorced. I decided to meet him at his work, about a 40-mile drive, with tacos, and we stayed awake until the sun came up. He worked graveyard security near Redondo Beach. And here we are 2.5 months later. We, both 18, FM, were playing on Battlefront 2, an online Star Wars game, at the same time. I never accept calls, friend requests from people online anymore because I'm shy, but for some reason this random person gave me a good feeling even though we had only talked like 3 times in the chat. We've been dating for 6.5 months now, calling for hours every day and FaceTiming frequently, and he's coming out here in early March, smiley face. He's my first boyfriend and he'll be the first person I ever hold hands with or kiss, haha. Before I met him I was pretty adamant on not getting with someone online because I thought it was stupid and he thought the exact same thing. Now we're here, lol. It's scary to think about how things would have been so different if I had lied that day and said I didn't have a Discord, like I usually do with randoms. It's amazing how one little action can change your life so much. Don't give up hope and don't feel rushed either. My so and I were friends for over 1.5 years before we started dating. We reconnected during the pandemic and met up a few times, then eventually started dating a few months into lockdown. Some of the activities we did before we started dating were outdoor activities such as hiking, going to a park, learning how to longboard, all which are super fun things to do when feeling out a relationship. Definitely don't give up hope. Wishing you the best op. We met in a WhatsApp class chat in college. While the class started in January pre-pandemic, it was an online class so we never met. In the chat, a really misogynistic guy started going off and the admin of the chat got so mad she made a new chat where both him and I joined. Ironically, this class was a women's studies class. So we all end up becoming close friends in the new chat to the point where we keep talking after the class ends, and even now this chat is very active. At one point I talk about Sonic the Hedgehog and he got interested and we started talking, then the others told us to move to DMs because we were flooding the chat with Sonic lore. Tinder this past July. It was actually funny because 2 weeks prior I had bumped my age limit up a year to his age and I was like a week away from deleting the app because I never got on it anymore. But one night I was bored so I got on Tinder, saw him and super liked him because he was super attractive and a graduate student in chemistry at my university, I'm physics, and we talked, met up within the week, made it official the week after, and he's currently laying next to me asleep while we're visiting his family for second Christmas. He's genuinely my soulmate and it was almost love at first sight. We both feel the same way and have agreed that we're getting married and having children together. I've never met a more perfect human being for me in my entire life. Long story short, there's always hope, and you might find love when you least expect it. Technically on a dating app, but we'd met and gone on a date several years ago and got back in touch during the pandemic over business. He's a tattoo artist and a mutual friend recommended him for a piece I wanted, and we just started talking and never stopped. I think the best advice I can give you is to go about your life naturally and let whatever happens, happen. Just be extra sure that whoever your heart chooses is someone you trust if you're going to be around them physically a lot, during the pandemic mess and all. But otherwise I've found dating to be pretty normal during the pandemic. My GF and I met on Timey back in March just before lockdowns began in our state. Texted every day for almost 3 months, met in person in May, spent the summer with each other, and now because of the rising cases in our state, we've been back in our own lockdowns once more, but we still text and interact with each other. It isn't perfect or ideal because of everything, but we still make it work. We're not officially a thing, yet. But it's obvious that's where we're headed. Laughing face. We met from online class. Funny enough, I started my first year of college and it's his second. We happened to have a class together, and my friend from that class made a group chat with our classmates. There we invited him and he and I hit it off pretty well. I'm sure you'll meet someone eventually. Good luck, dear stranger. We met on Tinder. Lol. We discussed dating procedure, and what our boundaries are online. Masks, dating venues that are appropriate and safe, etc. We both stay pretty much to ourselves, so dating was pretty easy honestly. We've spent a lot of time hiking and spending one-on-one time together rather than traditional dates. We cook for each other, instead of going to restaurants. Play videos games, do puzzles, IDK, it's nice. Was giving a friend a ride to pick up her cousin, then dropped them off and stayed with my buddy. Later that night I made a joke and he took it seriously, then messaged her so we picked them up and went to the park for a bit. The cousin and I hit it off and cuddled for hours. Now we cuddle up every weekend when she isn't busy, and we started dating officially 2 weeks ago. My girlfriend and I were friends in high school, and lost touch when we went to separate colleges. 6 years later, we were both back in our hometown for quarantine. After a couple months of lockdown, we started talking again, first as friends, then it turned to flirting. Since we'd both been quarantining responsibly and knew the other was COVID-free, we decided to meet up at her house. One thing led to another, and we talked for a few months, fell in love, and have officially been together for 4 months now. I'm the happiest I've ever been with her, and this is the healthiest relationship each of us has ever had. I really think she's the one. Smiley face. There is absolutely hope for recently single people. Just make sure you're being responsible and not putting yourself in plague's way. I met a guy on Tinder in April, when I was about to give up on the app after a few days. He'd been using the app passively for a couple of years with basically nothing coming of it. We started talking, exchanged Snapchats, and spent all night voice chatting, then video chatting, every night for about a week. We kept it friendly at first but eventually admitted to wanting a romantic relationship. After a month, I told him I loved him, and we've now been living together for many months now. Smiley face. We own 2 little tree frogs together. True human connection can come from anywhere. Probably will be pandemic shamed for this, but I met her at a Halloween party that was meant to be small. It started getting bigger, so the host kicked her and her friends out, so I got her snap from someone since we vibed, took her on a date, and we've been together since. If it makes you guys feel better, I test 2x a week for my work. I ended up contracting COVID from my roommate weeks later, not from the party though, and immediately caught it, and no one I was in contact with tested positive after taking multiple tests over the incubation period. 18M. 18F. We met through a college course in the last semester. I realized I wanted to tell her I liked her 2 weeks in and did just that. We hung out for the first time as friends around September, don't remember the exact Sunday. Fast forward another 2 dates, which was in late November, we were still heavily in contact. Class aside, I asked her to be my girlfriend while we were having dickies, and without hesitation, she surprisingly said yes. Over the course of the past month, I've met her entire family minus a cousin, step-uncle, and her dad's side of the family. We're taking things slow, but things are still going strong, and we kissed last night, more like she kissed me, but details. I've never had a relationship before, but I think what I can say applies to any relationship on and offline. Be respectful, take your time, and work around each other's schedules. We live with our respective moms before going to our separate dad's place every other weekend, so I try to see her when she's at her mom's place. I met him through Tinder in July. Because of the pandemic, I thought I won't have to go out anywhere. I had been single for around a year by that time, and I just wanted to test the waters. He was in the same colony as me, and we decided to go feed the dogs together. Ended up making out in the park, lol. Met almost every day. Then I had to go to another state for a month, and that is when we realized we wanted to be together. Been dating since October now. My boyfriend is actually my ex. Long story short, we broke up in 2018 after he was having trouble coming to terms with his sexuality and didn't wanna be with me while he was figuring himself out. I was devastated cause he was the first guy, the first ever really loved. We went our separate ways, and I didn't speak to him again until March of this year when he randomly messaged me. He was in a much better place after coming to terms with the fact that he's bi, I am too, and wanted to reach out. I was skeptical at first and kept him at arm's length. We started off as friends, but soon enough the both of us were flirting and calling each other for hours at a time. We met for the first time again in May, and I realized how still in love with him I really was. I hadn't been in a proper relationship since we had separated, tried dating other people but would get bored and just end it cause I didn't feel a connection to them. Things were rocky for the first few months due to COVID-19 and my own bad choices, but we're in a really good place RN and coming up to 8 months together. He's managed to move out into a house with his friends, which is only 30 minutes from me, and we spend most of our time together. Never thought I'd have another chance to be this happy, especially considering the year we've had, but he's been my rock and I'm so excited for our future together. Also, there is definitely hope. It can be around any corner and come at the strangest of times, but if you find someone and really like them, then take the plunge cause you never know what might happen. I wish you all the best in your search. I discovered Among Us and wanted to join some random game on Discord to play with the voice with real other players, as it is way funnier. I went on Twitch and found a small Twitcher, 6/7 viewers, looking for other players to play with and went along. 3 months and hundreds of hours of voice chat later, we actually met and are even half living together now. Super fast, I know. Met him on Tinder just as the pandemic started, so right before we went into lockdown, UK. Once everything hit, we had a couple of socially distant dates, mostly walks around my city while staying 2 meters apart, as was allowed at the time, before deciding to bubble together. Coming up to 11 months together this January, and we have both talked about sharing our future together. I was incredibly lucky, but choosing to bubble once we knew we wanted to be together definitely helped for me. 1. It allowed me to still spend time with him in person, and 2. It solidified for us both how invested we were in the relationship. He's the best thing to happen to me. I was dating a girl through the pandemic. She was abusive and genuinely just a horrible person. I eventually got the confidence to break up with her, and did. After doing so, I had a huge clear out. At this point in the UK, I was allowed to meet up with one other person. I had an old PSP that my mate had once shown interest in. I message him, and tell him I'm selling it and whether he wanted it for a good price, as he was my mate. He tells his younger cousin, and she gets in touch with me. She had also been in an abusive relationship. We have been together 4 months on the 31st. So hope this gives you hope. We met in a public library some years ago, but back then we weren't close, just friendly. He reached to me on 2019 and we texted sometimes. It wasn't till April 2020 that we decided to go for a coffee and we kind of reconnected, but honestly we were not looking for anything more than a friendship. Both of us had just ended our relationships, mine being an abusive one, and we were going through some hard stuff too. We listened and comforted each other. We went out just 2 times before the lockdown in our city. Then we texted more and more frequently, almost daily. I couldn't stop thinking about him, but I didn't want to seem needy and I wasn't sure if he would reciprocate my feelings or if he would want something with me. I'm 7 years older. We clicked so well. One day we even talked on the phone for 5 hours. I guess our flirting happened organically and all of a sudden we were having Zoom calls daily that would last for hours. Not so long after, we said, "I love you." Then we decided to meet, following safety protocols, and we finally kissed. The rest is history. We don't know exactly when this all started, but we are very happy. I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he is the love of my life and I want to spend the rest of my life by his side. 2020 was a very hard year for me, but he made it all better and I'm so grateful for him. So don't lose hope, you'll find your person sooner or later, in the most unexpected way. Online, through Tinder. Started out slowly talking in July. Then talked for a month or two and had our first date Labor Day weekend with a picnic where we talked for 8 hours. Been seeing each other since and planning to update our Facebook status next week. Laughing face, gonna make a silly fun date about it. Mostly our dates when weather were warm were outside, but lately it's mostly just going to each other's places, being safe. I won't lie, we're super looking forward to being able to relax, go to a regular bar or restaurant and have a normal date when things can return to normal, but taking it as it is right now. Valentine's Day. I was 25m, was an Uber driver at the time, and my now girlfriend, 25, had ordered a ride using a friend's account, girl who I knew from high school, so I accepted the request. They were all drunk, and my girlfriend found me cute, so she asked me if I was single, I was, and then if I was gay, I'm not, so she gave me her IG after I dropped her off and told me to hit her up. She's been my old lady ever since. We matched on Tinder a few times and had been talking on and off right before the lockdown happened. We were just kind of hooking up and hanging out for a month when we had to leave to go home from college. It had only been about a month of casually seeing each other, but I'd felt something from the first time we met, so I was really sad. I thought the quarantine had ruined something that could have turned out to be good. But then we started texting a lot and eventually FaceTime to finish watching a show we'd started together. We then ended up FaceTiming for the whole summer. It was kind of nice that this ended up being such a good way to get to know each other with what started as just a casual hookup. We didn't see each other in person for 5.5 months, but just FaceTiming made me so happy. We're happily in a relationship now and it's going so well. Next month I happen to be moving back to my college town into a place that's 2 doors down from them. My cousin introduced us. They grew up together and my cousin had joked for the past year or so that he, 26 meters, and I, 24F, would hit it off, we're the same person, would get married, etc. You know, I just wrote it off as pure gas and never paid serious thought to the idea. Anyhow, I was visiting my said cousin in Cali from PA for spring break back in March. It was right in the beginning of shit hitting the fan. My flight home was when people started panicking and everything started shutting down. I came home to PA for a week, my now BF and I talked non-stop. He asked me to come to Cali for good, and I did it. Figured when school went online and work shut down, I was a bartender pre-COVID, why the hell not? I was scared as hell but flew back to CA on a $13 flight and moved right into his place. It was an insane decision, super impulsive, and could have ended badly for sure. But we've lived together since then, just got a new apartment, and it's been the healthiest, most fun, and most encouraging relationship I've ever been in. I'm so happy and, honestly, I think he might be the one. So sappy, but I truly never thought I'd feel this kind of love and support like I have from him. Happy crying face. My cousin is about to get quite the shout out at the wedding ha. We met at the very start when it wasn't too bad, at an anime convention. You could say it was love at first sight for me. I told him his cosplay looked cool before I got swept away by the crowd. I found him later on and I barely managed to force myself to ask for his Instagram. He gave it to me, but later on that night his ex blocked me and I thought I had lost him. He found me again the next day, and then it was history from there. We fell in love quick and we're almost 10 months in now. I adore him more than anything and I've never found anyone like him. Met my BF on Tinder back at the end of May. Things were starting to die down with COVID, and then got significantly worse about a month later, in my area, so after a few days of FaceTimes and texting we decided to meet in person. We hit it off immediately and I felt safe going to meet him. I shared my location with my best friend and downloaded the Noonlight app. It was my first Tinder date so I was nervous but it was amazing. There is plenty of hope. I had gone through a hard breakup, ghosted, and later found out I was cheated on after over a year of dating at the end of February, and I finally felt like putting myself out there and got lucky. Good luck to you.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video. And if you are new, subscribe and click on the bell icon.